of the exams. But we have the voice recording and we share it for sure.
Okay, sure. So shall I start?
Yeah, for sure. The floor is yours.
Okay, in the name of God, as usual, I hope you are sitting pretty, full of beans, and in the pink. So, actually, last session we discussed Shakespeare's The Tempest uh, from colonial and post-colonial lens. Actually, we discussed the difference between colonialism and post-colonialism, and then we touched upon some important colonial and post-colonial features found within the uh, play. And also, it's worth mentioning that we read the abstract of my research paper shown here by you. And I think we discuss mimicry as one of the paramount features. Uh, Hello, Moed, as one of the paramount features of post-colonialism, and we discussed it in The Tempest. I think we were discussing the rest of the post-colonial features in The Tempest. اون اسلاید بودیم فکر میکنم that slide about post-colonial features. So uh, yes. Uh, I think we covered majority of them except the last one, which was ambivalence of hatred and paternal control. As you know, I think one of the overriding features of postcolonialism is ambivalence, which has been engraved in preponderance of this kind of text. For example, this part, Act 5, Scene 1, they think of darkness. I acknowledge mine. I emphasize this part of the play, and I think maybe it is the most significant part of the play. This thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. So, guys, how do you interpret this part of the play? Am I the I don't know Fatima and rest of the guys. What's your do you have any interpretation, any idea about this part of the play? This thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. پراسپرو این حرفو میزنه در خصوص کالیبان و این چه چیزی رو نشون میده in your from your assumption. What do you assume about it? And also you, uh, uh, Zahra, if I'm not mistaken about your name.
Yes, I'm so sorry because I mentioned it in the Instagram. I forgot a point.
No problem. This part of the play, Prospero says, this thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine. Hello, Zahra. What does he mean by this part of the play? What's your opinion or others' opinion about this part of the play?
If I'm not wrong, we have an act maybe at the middle of the play that
Mhm.
Caliban has this thinking with two other people in the islands to kill the Prospero. Maybe it depends on that part. To, for example, this darkness that this thought to killing or murder Prospero is something really bad or harsh things. I don't know.
Mhm. Thank you for your comment. And how about the rest of the guys? You don't have any idea about it? من البته بچه ها رو نمیبینم. Let me open the address. Okay. So, from my point of view, Prospero, by this sentence, he means that he accepts actually Caliban as a part of himself. I mean, the darkness found in the colonized, the darkness found in Caliban somehow is concerned, and it emanates from, yes, it actually represents his actually unconscious desires as well. دقیقاً درسته. You're right. So he accepts that Caliban is a part of himself. So that's why he says, this thing of darkness I acknowledge mine. میگه من قبول دارم که این چیز تاریکی مال خودمه، از خودم میاد. So the darkness actually results from Prospero himself. If you can remember, in the last session I told you about Edgar Allan Poe's concept called doppelganger. I type it here. اینجا می نویسم براتون بچه. doppelganger. Doppelganger. Hello, Angel. Hello, Angel. Welcome. Doppelganger. Actually, doppelganger in Persian we say همزاد. حالا شخص دومی همچین چیزی. So Caliban becomes the doppelganger of Prospero. I mean, the Prospero, who has been striving for many years as a European to self-discipline himself, now encounters Caliban, who is a combination of innocence, infantile behavior with lawlessness. So he tries to discipline him, and actually it is mentionable that this Caliban represents the repressed desires of Prospero. Bacho, guys, Europeans have a concept called free expression of effects. I mean, free expression of effect یعنی اینکه ما آزادانه احساساتمون رو مطرح بکنیم، بعضی وقتا دیسیپلین نداشته باشیم. So as you know, the white discourse, the European, they gainsay, they deplore, and high units. They disagree with free expression of effect. So maybe, as I told you, Caliban's sense of freedom to rape Miranda, to kill Prospero with a stake, it represents, it actually indicates and reflects the suppressed desires of Prospero himself. پس شاید کالیبان اصلا همزاد پراسپرو هستش و ما میتونیم این رو از بعد روانشناسی هم مورد بررسی قرار بدیم. پس as you can see, if I say Tempest is a canonical text, that's because we can analyze it through different lenses, not merely colonial and post-colonial, but also from psychological psychology lens, or the lens of, I don't know, post-structuralists. We can have deconstructive reading of the Tempest. So that's why I call it a canonical text. Okay, and do you have any question? Any questions so far? If you have any question, I'm at your disposal, guys. Any question? Okay, no question so far. So we can go to the next slide. Transferring the colonizers' language, as I told you last session, the colonizers, they always try to impose and inflict their own language on the colonized because it contributes to their cultural hegemony and it disarms the colonized. You know, کامل جلسه قبل راجع صحبت کردیم. I told you the importance and significance of imposition of language on the colonized, and then this language which is imposed is used by the colonized to resist, to undermine the colonizer, which is called mimicry. حالا اینو توی مقاله خودم I elaborated on this mimicry in my published article. So I want one of you to read it aloud for rest of the participants. Thank you. If
Is there any volunteer?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you, Pekka. And but Pekka, yes. So,
I think that firstly, I want to say hello, and then
hello,
I'm
hello,
really
Bego.
sorry if I'm not good at reading that
no,
much.
it's good.
So,
Thank you.
uh, transferring of the colonizer's language, mimicry, transferring the colonizer's language to the colony, which must be considered as a crucial social institution of great importance to the colonizers, was the case which happened in the Tempest when Caliban was forced to learn this language in order to infiltrate the encoded colonial system organized by Prospero so that he could regain his inherited island.
So as you can see here, uh, Prospero and Miranda, they are at pains to inflict their language on Caliban to make him disarmed and open to their culture. Caliban says, okay, no problem. But secretly, he's taking advantage of this language against the colonizer to undermine them. پس از این زبانی که یاد میگیره کالیبان بر علیه خود استعمارگر استفاده میکنه. Therefore, mimicry is, as I told you, one of the overriding and paramount keywords within post-colonial studies. ما این رو تاکید میکنیم. And also, if I'm not mistaken, in criticism, in criticism, the book called Criticism by Bressler, actually it was completely elaborated on by Bressler. So let's get to the next slide. Hello, Amin. Welcome to this session. So let's get to the next slide. Okay. Aerial and mimicry. خب بچه دیدیم که we saw that Caliban is violent. Caliban tries to rape Miranda. Caliban tries to kill Prospero. Although all of these efforts failed, but he tried to show and display an aggressive image of himself to the colonizer. So he somehow, by his violence, he didn't welcome them. But when it comes to the aerial, وقتی داستان به aerial میرسه چطور میشه؟ When it comes to aerial, actually اولا که من یه سوالی دارم از بچه ها. I have a question for you. I am sure that all of you and you also Zahra, all of you have read The Tempest because Tempest is a canonical text and you as a student of literature, all of you are familiar with this work. My question is that who is the first colonized in this island? اصلا اولین کسی که به استعمار گرفته شد تو این جزیره کی بودش؟ And who was the first colonizer? و اولین استعمارگر کی بودش؟ This is my question for you. Who is going to answer this question? So no one is volunteer to answer this question. Okay.
if I'm not wrong, Asignaris, the mother of Prospero, is the colonizer.
The first colonizer?
Yes.
Yes.
Island.
Yes. Absolutely,
And
you're right.
Ariel is the colonizer, the first.
Yes, yes, yes. Exactly. You nailed it. Bravo. Actually, Ariel is the first colonized exploited by Sycorax, the mother of Caliban. But unfortunately, majority of students, they misunderstand and they suppose that the first colonizer is Prospero and the colonized is Caliban. ولی اینطور نیستش. However, I want to draw your attention to some important point, and that's Ariel approach and attitude. Hello, Aria. An attitude toward the colonizer. Actually, Ariel doesn't try to show any aggression of himself to Prospero or Miranda. I mean, he seeks to use some shrewd, canny, and savvy approaches to make Prospero tender, and finally is released by him. از اون خشونت دیده نمیشه توی اریا. سعی میکنه خیلی دیپلماتیک رفتار بکنه، خیلی سیاستمدارانه رفتار بکنه. So that's why it says, all hail great master, great sir, I come to answer thy best pleasure, to swim, to dive into the fire, on the curled clouds, to thy strong beating task, area, and all his qualities. So as you can see here, it is overt, it is crystal clear in his language that he has conciliatory approach toward Prospero to earn his freedom. So that's why he serves Prospero and fulfill his purposes to regain his actually freedom and independence from him. اینم از داستانم با ایریل. اوکی. راجب about ambivalence, again I want one of you to read the second paragraph. Paragraph دوم, I want one of you to read the second paragraph for the participants. Thank you. Please volunteer to read the second paragraph, guys. Okay. So, oh, thank you, Moeda.
Yes.
As a literary scholar, I found an appealing point within all the colonial works, specifically The Tempest, and that's the fact that the colonizer looks upon the colonized simultaneously as subject and object. In other words, when the colonizers considers the colonized as the immoral, lazy, and uncivilized, at this moment they have objective view towards them. However, when they consider the resources, land, and sexuality of the aboriginal, the colonized becomes the subject.
Okay, thank you so much. So as you can see here, in post-colonial discourse, there is ambivalence. Sometimes they try to consider and take the colonized as subject, sometimes as object, by calling them lazy, lethargic, uncivilized. So their point of view revolves around the colonized in an ambivalent way. Both subjects, sometimes they have a reductive approach and reduces them to the object of their desire and exoticism. این نکته بودش that this point actually I wrote about in my article. So let's get راجبش صحبت کردیم همین جلسه کافیه بریم سراغ let's get to the next slide. Okay. Corrupted image of the colonized. Guys, from my point of view and point of view of most critics such as Edward Said, Homi Baba, the colonizer always tries to engender and bring about a depraved image of the colonized. همیشه استعمارگر سعیش اینه که بگه مستعمره فاسد، انسان نیست، corrupted هستش and we are going to fix them. As I told you in the last session, such as what happened in Grapes of the Wheat by Thompson. By the pretext of civilizing Africans, he devastated and demolished them. همیشه سعی میکنن اینا رو درست بکنن ولی اصلا نابودشون میکنن و سعی میکنن تصویر فاسد رو از اینها نشون بدن. I want to actually draw your attention to the text. For example, Miranda who calls Caliban as abhorred slave. بهش میگه برده منفور. Or I don't know, the son of a hag without human shape, haxy, tortuous, poisonous slave. So these kind of stereotypical representations are ample in the Tempest, and in this way they try to justify, foster and enact their actually colonization over the colonized. این توجیه میکنن خودشون، یعنی سعی میکنن جاستیفای بکنن استعمار خودشون رو روی مستعمره از طریق ایجاد تصویری خراب در به داغون از مستعمره. And I want to draw your attention to the let's say second paragraph. To put it another way, how one treats peoples who are so defined doesn't really matter, they maintain, because many Westerners subscribe to the colonialist ideology that all races other than white were inferior or subhuman. برسلر تو کتاب خودش که حتما خوندید، کتاب مشکی رنگ نقدش، has posited and maintained this paragraph. میگه همه نژاد ها، همه ریس ها پستن، پایین، مثلا انسان نیستن. So you as literature student, when you want to read a literary work through the lens of colonialism as post-colonialism, مثلا حالا یه واحدی داریم. Actually there is a course called colonial studies and post-colonial studies. However, you don't get familiar with it until you become a PhD student in literature. But if I'm not mistaken, even in a master, when you read some canonical works of colonialism, such as, for example, Beloved, Heart of Darkness, you become, let's say, acquainted. So you should look for corrupted image of the colonized. وقتی اثر استعمارگری رو پس استعمارگری میخوایم بررسی کنید، حتما بچه‌ها توجه داشته باشید که این تصویر فاسد و خراب شده مستعمره رو دنبالش باشید و این چیزیه که در واقع رخ میده تو این آثار. So let's get to the next slide if you don't have any question. Is there any question so far? سوالی تا اینجا هست بچه‌ها؟ Any question? Thank you for your nice reaction, Moede. Okay, so derision of mimic men. As I told you before and so far, mimicry is an efficacious, is an effective, effectual way to get rid of the colonizer and to undermine their system. However, there is a problem. There is an obstacle, barrier on the way of mimic men. یک مانعی رو ما داریم بچه ها بر سر اونایی که این میمیکری رو اجرا میکنن. Unfortunately, they are contempted both by their colonizer and actually their own community. یعنی اینا رو نه اون سفید پوسته تحویل میگیره نه کمیونیتی خودشون تحویل میگن because they are trying to change their appearance, they try to imitate customs, language and behavioral patterns of the colonizer, so they aren't welcomed by their own community. They are derided, ridiculed, and this is a big problem of these people. uh, این قسمت رو در واقع about it homie baba has stipulated this appealing let's say paragraph. uh, Moede, could you please read the first paragraph of this slide?
Of course.
Thank you.
Mimic men are every now and then derided by their fellow men who reside in the same colony for the fact that they hold the same traits of the colonizer. For instance, they try to learn the colonizer's language to infiltrate their authority, and by doing so, they intend to attenuate them. In other words, mimicry is a double vision which in disclosing the ambivalence of colonial discourse also disrupts its authority.
Thank you so much. And then Said continues and said, consider the mimic man. I mean, unlike Edward Said, uh, who consider mimic men as immobilized people who are subdued. When it comes to Baba, he declares that mimic men they could undermine the colonizer uh, by possessing, let's say, passive resistance rather than active resistance. یعنی برعکس ادوارد سعید بابا هومی بابا has a, let's say, positive attitude towards mimicry. So this is the difference between attitude of Edward Said and Homi Baba uh, about, let's say, mimicry. دو دیدگاه متفاوت، یکی از ادوارد سید و دیگری از هومی بابا در خصوص میمیکری. یکی موافقه و دیگری مخالفه. So let's get to the next slide. Yes, Moede has said they sometimes dehumanize them and sometimes not, and it justifies their actions. Oh, yes, exactly. It is concerned with their ambivalent approach. Ambivalent یعنی چی؟ یعنی روی کردش اصلا مشخص نیست کدوم ولی. بعضی وقتا سوژهشون میشن، بعضی وقتا ابژهشون میشن، ابژه دیزایرشون میشن، اینا مشخص نمیکنه. So, importance of the learning the language of the colonizer. Actually, I expatiated sufficiently on learning the language of colonizer, but this part of the play, I forgot, it escaped my mind which act and scene is that. But Stefano says, this is some monster of the isle with 4 legs who has got, as I take it, an ego. Where the devil should he learn our language? So Stefano actually gets goosebumps and is freaked out. How has Caliban earned and learned the language? So it's a big wonder for him, and he's afraid of this important incident and event. Because as I told you, when the colonized learns the language of the colonizer, it will be noxious, detrimental, and deleterious for the colonizer and his project in the land of the colonized. این چیزی که دیگه خیلی راجبش صحبت کردیم، نمیخوام بیشتر صحبت کنم، شما هم خسته میشید. هم جلسه قبل همین جلسه دیگه اندازه کافی راجب زبان و اهمیت یادگیری صحبت کردیم. بریم اسلاید بعدی. چه سری نکات ریزم از میخوام صحبت بکنم. Yes, finally Caliban says, actually, you taught me language, my prophet on it. I know how to curse. So Caliban, by learning the language of the colonizer, now is able to curse Prospero and Miranda. So as I told you over and over, it becomes a great opportunity at the service of the actually colonized. بچه به خاطر همین من جلسه قبل به شما گفتم ما یک مفهومی داریم به نام کروسو کامپلکس، از همون رابینسون کروسو دنیل دفو میاد بچه. یعنی چی؟ یعنی اینکه the exploiter, the colonizer tries to impose his knowledge, structure, education on the colonized to make him disarmed. یعنی خلع سلاح کنی مستعمره رو به این صورت. اما همین استفاده میشه توسط مستعمره که تو رو در واقع خلع سلاح کنه و disarmed بکنه. به خاطر همینه که میگم that's why I tell you the relationship between the colonizer and colonized is a mutual destruction. این عبارت رو توجه کن، mutual destruction، نابودی متقابل. من میام خودم به تحمیل بکنم ولی در نهایت تو از همون ساختار استفاده میکنی منو از بین ببری. This mutual destruction is a key word used by, if I'm not mistaken, the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, years ago, when he was interviewed about the war, about colonization. He said, this mutual. So the relationship between the colonizer and colonized is shaky. رابطهشون بچه رابطه لرزانیه. این شما رو یاد چی میندازه این رابطه لرزان؟ What does it remind you? It is reminiscent of the shaky relationship between colonizer and colonized. شما رو یاد چی میندازه بچه های؟ زهرا.
My best says, if I made you curse me in my own words, I have won the match already.
Yes, if I made you curse me in my own words, I have won the match already. Yes, it's actually concerned with language. بچه رابطه بین colonizer و colonized این رابطه شیکیه. It's unstable relationship. And it is concerned with Hegel and his attitude and approach about master slave. ما وقتی میگیم استعمارگر مستعمره یه جوری ما رو یاد master slave و ارباب و برده میندازه. میگه که این ریلیشنشیپ شیکی هستش، یعنی لرزانه. چرا لرزانه؟ Because Prospero cannot be called master without existence of کلیبان. اصلا پراسپرو نمیتونه مستر بشه یا کولونایزر بشه بدون حضور مستعمره. تا زمانی که as long as there is Caliban as colonized, the colonizer and master finds meaning. اصلا پراسپرو به عنوان استعمارگر با حضور کالیبانه که معنی پیدا میکنه. And to further my point, both Miranda and Prospero, they heavily depend on Calibans. How? For example, Caliban has labor for finding, for making firewood. I mean, they survive. Prospero and Miranda, they survive by the labor of Caliban. پس اینا به هم وابستن. اوکی؟ اینا رابطهشون رابطه میوچوال، reciprocal relationship. این هم یه نکته دیگه. So if you don't have any question, let's get to the next slide.
Yes, and Mother comments something really good. I think darkness exists only in the shadow of the day.
Yes, darkness exists only in the shadow of the day. Mother, what do you mean by this sentence? I didn't get you fully. Could you please clarify your point? Thank you.
I think it's the relationship between Caliban and Prospero from Iran. Yes, Mari, go ahead.
So to be more clear, we can say that every master needs a slave to be a master. So The darkness needs light to exist. If there is no light, darkness doesn't exist.
Mhm. Yes, I appreciate your comments. So you accentuated and supported this point about their mutual dependence and reliance. Okay. Mm, okay. Binary opposition, Zahra, binary opposition. Mhm. Yes, the world of colonization is the world of binaries. من اتفاقا راجع به باینری ها هم حالا که بحثش باز شد و پگاه صحبت کرد. پگاه could you please tell us about binary opposition? What binaries did you find in this play? تو چه باینری هایی پیدا کردی توی نمایشنامه؟ به ما بگو. Thank you. پگاه could you please tell us about binary oppositions, Pegah?
I don't know, maybe she tried to write in the message. If
Maybe.
you can, yes, turn on your mic if you want.
Mhm.
Actually, I didn't want to bring some examples of the play when our dear friend Maida says about the darkness, and I don't know, these two, for example, day and night, and you are talking about colonizer and colonized, it's something, just comes to my mind about the binary opposition. But I don't have any examples or instances from the Tempest. Although there are
Okay.
a lot, but I didn't want to mention about those examples. I just wanted to say that when she was talking about the day
Uh-huh.
and night, and you
Yes.
were talking about the colonizer and colonized, something which comes to my mind is binary opposition. And
Yes.
for example, those things which is related to the post-colonial system and post-colonial language like self and other, I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pegah. Okay. How
Welcome.
about the rest of the guys? You don't want to tell us about examples of binaries in Tempest? Gotcha. So let me tell you if you don't have any example. Uh, خب this play is canonical because, as I told you at the beginning of the session, that we can to complement Pegah, I think when they learn their oppressor's language is an example of binary opposition. Let me elucidate and clarify my point. Zahra, you don't have any idea about binary oppositions and examples؟ تو دیدگاهی نداری راجع به این باینری ها؟
Actually not, but if I'm not wrong, we didn't mention the comments to complement Pega. I think when they learn their oppressor's language is an example of binary opposition.
Guys, thank you. When we say binary دو شاخه binary oppositions, actually these binaries was first initiated by Plato, then was supported by Aristotle. This play is replete with, is full of binary oppositions. For example, Prospero is emblem symbol of ration. Caliban is symbol of passion. Miranda is symbol of virginity, purity. Caliban is emblem of lustfulness and lechery. The island is emblem of disorder, chaos, and the land from which Prospero came, I mean Europe, is the land of order. So these are binary oppositions. ما به اینا میگیم binary. Or the binary of black, white, uncivilized, civilized. حالا اصلا چرا این باینری ها باید استفاده بشه بچه؟ چون سوال پرسید میخوام جوابتون بدم. پگاه. Actually, these binary oppositions are employed by Shakespeare to put Prospero and Miranda's superior place compared to Caliban. این واسه این که اینا رو استعمارگر رو در فضای بالاتر قرار بده میاد از این باینری ها استفاده میکنه. ولی در نهایت هم I mean finally it failed because as I told you this relationship between colonizer and colonized is really shaky. پس اینم از سوال شما در خصوص باینری و نکته‌ای که گفت. بسیار عالی. خب اما بریم سر ادامه کار و بحث violence as an essential facet of decolonization. As I told you in the last session, violence is an integral part of decolonization. To get rid of the colonization, we need to exert and employ violence, and it is emphasized by Frantz Fanon, the French, if I'm not mistaken, sociologist or psychologist. I mean, he's a post-colonial critic as well. In his book, The Wretched of the Earth, I mean, he accentuated that we should exert this violence against the colonizer, otherwise we won't be decolonized. این قسمت رو من میخوام که حتما یکی از بچه ها بخونه، مائده یا پگاه یا هر کدومتون. Please read the first paragraph. Thank you. If you can't read, I can do it. No problem. Take one. Yes.
Yes, if you can or I can do it, it's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Frantz Fanon hypothesized, if I'm not wrong, yes, the violence which has ruled over the order of the colonial world, which has ceaselessly drummed the rhythm for the destruction of native social forms and broke up without reserve the system of reference of the economy, the customs of dress and external life. That same violence will be claimed and taken over by the native at a moment when deciding to embody history in his own person. He surges into the forbidden quarters. To wreck the colonial worlds is henceforward a mental picture of action which is very clear, very easy to understand, and which may be assumed by each one of the individuals which constitute decolonized people.
Okay, so this violence, as I told you, is manifest in Caliban's behavior and his actions when he decides to, as I told you, rape Miranda, or when he decides to kill, let's say, Prospero. However, I touched upon this concept the last session, but it was maybe necessary decision to talk about it. So violence against violence. خشونت در مقابل خشونت. So we must employ actually RSA, repressive state apparatus, or aggression against the RSA employed by the colonizer. Okay, so let's get to the next slide. Okay. Mhm. Uh, yes, this island is mine by Sycorax, my mother, which thou take from me when thou came first, actually. So, Caliban in this part of the play was discussing the fact that the land belonged to him and his mother, was exploited, was taken over by Prospero, and now through the language Caliban has learned, he employs it to curse him. یه جورایی داره میگه تو اومدی این سرزمین منو از من گرفتی با خشونت، حالا باید همین خشونت رو استفاده کنه که بتونه اینجا رو آزاد بکنه. But my question for you, Zahra, guys, is that can this violence be effective to decolonize؟ به نظرتون خشونت راه خوبیه برای اینکه ما خودمون از استعمار آزاد بکنیم؟ So I want to repeat my uh, question. سوال من اینه: Should we employ violence to decolonize, to get rid of colonization؟ برای اینکه از استعمار رهاشیم به نظرتون خشونت میتونه مفید باشه در مقابل خشونت استعمارگر؟ نظرتون چی؟ بفرمایید.
In my opinion, no. It's not a really good solution.
Mm-hmm. So what's your solution, Zahra?
Because we can see the Caliban cannot do anything in this play, for example. But
Mm-hmm.
generally, I think you should have a really rationality in your behavior somehow, besides the colonizer and political ways. It's maybe a good solution more than the violence.
So you actually take side with, for example, using some shrewd ways such as passive resistance, or passive resistance such as mimicry. Mm?
زهرا
Yes.
گفته که بیشتر بستگی به موقعیت داره. گاهی خشونت لازمه، گاهی میشه با پنبه سر برید. That's beautiful.
Yes, to kill people with kindness. با پنبه سر، to kill people with kindness. And yes, it was overt and clear in the character of Ariel. To Ariel هم چیزی بود دقیقا با پنبه سر بریدن. Yes. And thank you for your comment. So let's get to the next slide. یه دونه بعدیش yes, define Greenblatt's criticism of Caleb. Actually, I'm sure that all of you are well acquainted with Greenblatt, yes? Zara, who is Stephen Greenblatt? Do you know him? Stephen Greenblatt.
Come back. Yes, but exactly now I forgot it. I know we had it. Yes, in our course.
انقدر اسما زیاده توی ادبیات که واقعا طبیعیه سامتازی اسلیمان. Stephen Greenblatt, the professor of Harvard, if I'm not mistaken, University, actually is the founder of New Historicism studies in United States. مؤسس New Historicism هستش, and he believes that you as the author are influenced by the historical, political, and cultural context in which you are writing. So this is the attitude of Stephen Greenblatt. In his, let's say, essay called Learning to Curse, یه essay داره به نام Learning to Curse. یاد بگیریم نفرین کنیم، یعنی یاد گرفتن برای نفرین همچین چیزی. Stephen Greenblatt asserts that, I mean, he takes side. He's a fan of Prospero. And then he calls Caliban as the noble savage. یعنی گرینبلت به کالیبان میگه وحشی نجیب. So Greenblatt calls Caliban the noble savage. Savage is a derogatory, an insulting term. So we can find out deep racist perspective even in the point of view of a person, of an icon like Greenblatt himself. یعنی بچه‌ها بذارید اینجوری بهتون بگم، این نکته خیلی مهمه. من یه چیزی اول بهتون بگم، وقتی که مقاله می‌نویسید، مثلا ان فارسی میگم کاملا مشخص شد، وقتی مقاله می‌نویسید سعی کنید که دیدگاه در یه قسمتی از مقالتون دیدگاه افراد رو با هم بیارید و کانترست قرار بدید، اصلا خودتون با دیدگاه اون فرد مخالفت کنید، معمولا هم یک آیکان باشه، نه اینکه همینجوری الکی، باید یه رشنی هم واسش داشته باشید. حالا رشنی که من اینجا به کار بردم، thank you مائده for your reaction and پگاه گفتش که ما صحبت کنیم. Okay, so again I tell you, پگاه, my background is not English. Okay, so when you are writing an article, a research paper in English, you should try to elaborate on one of the icons of English literature. Then you should try to present your, let's say, contradictory perspective of that person. However, you need to employ a ration, let's say, your logical narrative within those lines, and actually it contributes to the popularity. Counter argument to the popular, it contributes to the popularity of your actually research paper. اینجا ما of new historicism, he calls Caliban a noble savage. بهش میگه savage، بهش میگه وحشی نجیب. So it elucidates، مشخص میکنه، it clarifies the racist point of view of Greenblatt himself. یعنی گرینبلاتی که مؤسس نوتاریخگرایی تو امریکاست، خودش he becomes the victim of racist ideas of whites. I mean, he becomes victim of Eurocentrism, American centrism, things like that. خود گرینبلات با اینا رو محکوم میکنه توی صحبتاش، اما اینجا تو این اثر قربانی میشه. و من این رو پیدا کردم، در خصوصش توی مقاله صحبت کردم. And actually this part of the research, my research paper, it drew the attention of some people, and that's why my paper has had 5 or 6 citations and also 7,000 readers. So try to do it in your research papers. سعی کنید اگه خواستید مقاله بنویسید به این نوآوری‌ها دست بزنید. اینا رو دیگه شاید جایی هم ننوشته باشه، ولی خب تو این در واقع تو این سشن یاد بگیرید، این نکات رو توی مقاله‌تون رعایت کنید، میتونه کمکتون بکنه بچه‌ها. خب let's get to the next please slide. دقیقا همون نکته‌ای که گفتیم رو آورده که گفته نوبل سویج، اینجا هم چیز خاصی نداره چون توضیح دادم. Please let's get to the skip this slide. Yes, the conclusion. Could you please, one of you, I have a weak eyesight, could you please read the conclusion of my article? Yes. میتونید بچه بخونید چون من بخونم نتونم. حالا
Is there any volunteer?
Is there any volunteer?
I can read about 3 lines or 4 lines, and I like to switch and someone else take my turn.
مشکلی که به نظر مهمتره اون اوایلش هم هستش، میتونین شما بخونید.
Yes,
میخوام این قسمت که اینکلود کنید. بفرمایید. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Totally based on what was analyzed regarding 6 characters, their attitudes, manners, monologues, and other features in terms of critical opinions of Homi Bhabha, Franz Fanon, and Edward Said and Paul Brown, we come to know that Shakespeare's play is an uncanny yet exotic one in which the reality of violence and bloody events during Renaissance in New World was well depicted. And this play was published in 1623, which has the climax of rushing throngs to America so as to exploit its indigenous indigenous residents. Sorry, this play was and its natural resources. That is why the sea dominates Renaissance literature. As a matter of fact, The Tempest, alongside Shakespeare's other published plays, resonate with sea adventures, shipwrecks, storms, and sailors.
Yes.
Shall I continue, or that's
Could
enough?
you please read the last lines, 3 or 4 lines from the
Yeah.
bottom? Yes.
However, Paul Brown presented a wholly different exegesis compared to that of Greenblatt when he claimed that Prospero was a malevolent character who even used the rape of his daughter for his own good, which was manifest through forcing Caliban as a colonized to learn his language, but the result was shocking to him since Caliban used the language to curse him. Finally, this article attempted to show the ulterior ambiguity in The Tempest as a colonial play in which the colonized is at the same time both the object and subject in the eyes of the colonizer.
Thank you so much. خب این در واقع مبحث مقاله ما بودش. البته من یه میشه گفت 3-4 تا نکته کوچیک هم داشتم. نمیدونم چقدر وقت داریم، میتونیم راجع بهش صحبت بکنیم یا نه. هر جو که حالا میدونید من دقیقاً
تقریبا نهایتا 1 رو به دیگه داشته باشیم.
بسیار
اوکی.
خب بسیار عالی. So guys, don't you have any question about our today's discussion so far and the article؟ ما مقاله رو اینجا کاور کردیم در خصوص استعمارگری و پس استعمارگری. So I hope you have learned all the colonial and post-colonial features as regards Shakespeare's Tempest. Is there any question? Any problem?
ببخشید من به فارسی این قسمت سوالم رو پرسم. I don't have any problems to put, I don't have any problems to put it in English, but I want to, digest my question for myself.
Yes,
I prefer to ask it in Persian, if it's possible. ببخشید اونجایی که سوال پرسیدین که این خشونت درباره خشونت جواب میده، حالا بعضی از دوستان هم یعنی میشه روش حسابات کرد برای اینکه اون سیستم این کلونیال و اون پست کلونیال در واقع از بین بره. اول اینکه خب اصلا نظر خودتون چیه؟ چون به هر حال شما الان به این تست، به این نقد ادبی واقفین. بعد من خواستم بگم میشه از این نظر بهش نگاه کرد که وقتی دو تا چیز اپوزیتن، یعنی این کلونایزره اون کلونایزده، یه چیز دارکه نمیدونم لایت روشنه، این دوتا خب همدیگر چون دو قطب مختلفن این رو جذب میکنن. یعنی تا زمانی که ما این دوتا پارت مختلف رو داریم هم این سیستم استعمار هست. ولی خب اتفاقا همین نکته‌ای که اینجا یعنی من دارم فقط چیزایی که الان اومده در ذهنم میگم، حتی خودم نمیدونم الان قبولش دارم یا فقط دارم میخوام مطرحش کنم، بلند دارم فکر میکنم. میخوام ببینم که این الان در واقع این خشونتی که شما گفتین بیایم بذاریمش، خب داره انگار در مقابل خشونت فاصله رو کم میکنه، یعنی داره این دو قطبیه رو کم میکنه. ما تا زمانی که این دوتا باینری رو داریم این سیستم هم هست. حالا انگار به نظر میرسه جالب شد، حالا درسته اون خشم که نمیشه اون قسمت منفیشو پاکش کرد، ولی انگار داره کمرنگش میکنه، نه انگار داره، یعنی اینطوری بر من حالا نمیدونم اصلا شما بفرمایید که
نظر خودت چیه؟ What's your own idea about violence؟ خودت میگی خوبه یا نه خشونت به نظر؟
خب من دارم خب خشونت رو من فکر نمی‌کنم تنها البته بستگی هم داره. به هر حال ما based on what our religion is not I'm not talking about rage and anger. ولی مثلا حضرت عیسی میگه آقا یه مثلا سیل زده شد شما این ور صورتتم بیار، ولی خب پیغمبر میگه نه در مقابلش وایسا، اگر مثلا این ور زد بپرس برای چی زد. میگم اگر با این نگاه با این اوتلوک داره نگاه میکنیم خب اینجا باید جلوش وایسن دیگه. حالا اگر خشم من با اون نگاه باینری فقط دارم میگم خب جلوی اون خشونت باید یه خشونت بیاری تا اون فاصله از بین بره انگار. نمیدونم من واقعا بعضی موقع آدم نمیتونه صحبت واضح و روشنی داشته. من اینجا واقعا نظری ندارم، یعنی بگم که الان من میدونم در صورتی که میدونستم جواب میده که این بنده خدا از این حالت در بیان به اون چیزشون برگردن شاید میگفتم چرا که نه. به هر حال هم زندگی خودشون تو آمریکا داشتن، اون قبایل، اون سرخپوستا، اون افریکن امریکن ها، چرا نباید از یک سیستمی از حالا حتی به خشونت علیهشون استفاده شده. شاید واقعا اونها دوست داشته باشن به همون کیفیت زندگی، نمیدونم، به همون آزادی که داشتن دوست دارن برگردن. چرا خب نباید آدم بگه که نه مثلا برای شما بده ولی برای اون وایت خوبه که علیه اینها استفادهش کرده. حالا من نظر خودم میگم به خاطر اینجا پرسیدین اعلام نکردم، ولی میخواستم ببینم خودتون با تجربه اینکه اینها رو خوندین، این منتقدا رو خوندین، اصلا میشه اینطوری بهش نگاه کرد؟ چون مثلا دارم در ایکوکریتیسیزم مثلا والپلانگود استرالیایی میاد رد میکنه، اصلا میگه این اصلا از جایی که باینری رو درست میکنین کلونیالیسم درست میشه، حالا پس هر جوری که هست بیا بذارش کنار. ولی من در اینجا نمیدونم این چه نقشی میتونه داشته باشه، یا حداقل توی نمایشنامه اصلا نمیدونم چه جایگاهی میتونه این داشته باشه.
Yes. Yes.
ببخشید طولانی شد.
خواهش میکنم. My pleasure. I suppose that you as the colonized need to employ both active resistance and passive resistance. Active resistance manifests in violence, and passive resistance like military. So you need to employ both of them. Maybe in this way it can be effective. I agree with you that it depends on the extent and degree of the violence employed also by the colonizer. این هم مهمه ما بدونیم اون استعمارگره چقدر خشنه، چی کار داره میکنه. اینا خیلی مهمه. مثلا for example just consider and compare two characters. Prospero in Tempest, Kurtz in Heart of Darkness. اونجا باید خشونت به کار ببری because he's a sadistic murderer. But Prospero is not a sadistic murderer. So you don't need to employ, for example, harsh violence such as, for example, what happened in the Heart of Darkness. پس اینم خیلی نکته بود. ولی دیدگاه شخصی من اینه. Both active resistance and passive resistance might be. تازه من میگم might be. شاید. احتمالا might be. Might work. And might be considered as panacea and a solution to this crisis. ولی اینم یادمون نره که بازم آسون نیست. It's not that easy because if you want to use the violence, you shouldn't forget that the colonizer has gun, has revolver, and نکته. پس این نظر شخصی من اینه که هر دوتاشو به کار ببرید. و سر این مباحث هم توی ادبیات سوال از من پرسیده میشه، من دیدگاه شما رو میبرم. I draw your attention to Zizek, his parallax view. He believes that any phenomenon in literature has different perspective of people, so we cannot answer it. We cannot answer it merely in one way. So we should have the different perspectives, not just single perspective of mine. Maybe your perspective is better than me, and that's why I say the final meaning eludes in this kind of post-colonial and colonial works. ولی خب این دیدگاه شخصی من بود که هم اکتیو رزیستنس هم پسیو رزیستنس. اگر شما اینم بگم سوالتون، اگه شما وایت سارگاسوسی رو خونده باشید خیلی اثر قشنگه که در واقع کانتر کانونیکال جین ایره. جین ای رو که حتما خوندید، برونتی نوشته شده، برونتی. وایت سارگاسوسی رو که بخونید میبینید که مثلا ما کاراکترمون انچوانت استعمارگر خودش رو چجوری سعی میکنه شکست بده. هم اکتیو رزیستنس داره، پرخاش بهش میکنه، گازش میگیره، نمیدونم خونهش رو آتیش میزنه. هم پسیو رزیستنس داره، یعنی بعضی وقتا سکوت میکنه، وقتی میبینه بهش خیانت میشه توسط روچستر خودش رو شاید بتونیم بگیم حتی به جنون میزنه و پس میشه گفت ترکیب هر دوش بهتر جواب. بسیار عالی. خب تو این 5-6 دقیقه آخرم این دو تا نکته رو بگم اگر سوال دیگه نیست. Guys, you can have also feminist reading of the Tempest. شما میتونید ریدینگ فمینیستی داشته باشید اگه خواستید مقاله بنویسید. چجوریه feminist reading؟ به این صورته که میراندا is the only female character، تنها کاراکتر مؤنث only female character who is used by Prospero to further his political purposes. یعنی همین میراندا که تنها کاراکتر خانم ما هستش سوء استفاده میشه توسط پراسپرو که داده بشه به فردیناند و این به مقاصد سیاسی خودش برسه. پراسپرو. پس میتونیم فمینیست ریدینگ رو داشته باشیم از این پلی. این هم نکته بودش که به نظر من جالبه و اگر بخوام نکته آخریمو بگم اینه که بچه ها شکسپیر's last play was Tempest. اوکی. as a colonial work. حالا این آخرین اثرش تمپست بودش، ولی شما you can find this exploitation and colonialism even in his earlier plays. برید نمایشنامه‌های قبلیش هم بخونید، اونجا هم این استعمارگری و زورگویی رو میبینید. For example in Antonio the Merchant of Venice، تاجر ونیس، حتما خوندید دیگه. The Merchant of Venice. I don't know in Love's Labor's Lost، تلاش بیهوده عشق. Measure for Measure، حکم در برابر حکم. Henry the Fourth، Andronicus Titus. یعنی تو تمام آثار قبلیش هم میبینیم که یه کاراکتری هست که به یکی دیگه زور میگه. کلا باسینگ اراوند و زورگویی و استثمار کردن تو نمایشنامه‌های قبلیش هم هست، ولی میشه گفت I can say that Tempest is the revised version of the earlier colonial works by Shakespeare. وگرنه تو تمام نمایشنامه هم این رو میتونید پیدا بکنید. خب من میتونم بگم که تمام نکات خودم رو صحبت کردم. اگر شما سوالی دارید if you have any question or any problem I am at your disposal guys. اگر نظری دارید، نکته‌ای دارید، من در خدمت.
Thank you so much, Mr. محمدی. It's a really pleasurable actually discussion. This is two session we're just talking about that. It's really amazing. If there's any question, we are all ears, guys.
That's very nice of you.
Thank you.
امیدواریم که
نه اوکی، متشکرم. مرسی بابت اینکه دعوت ما پذیرفتین. 2 هفته پیاپی یه وقتتون در اختیارمون قرار دادین. بسیار لذت بردیم و مباحث بسیار اوکی بود که فکر می‌کنم خیلی وقتا بچه‌ها رو به فکر هم واداشت.
Thank you so much for giving me and for giving me this opportunity to discuss my article about Shakespeare's The Tempest, and I hope you have learned a lot of things. in these two sessions. Can I talk to you after the end of the session, Rahul?
Yeah,
Here?
for sure. Yes,
Thank
for sure. So, as I see that there is no question, thank you guys for being with us until now, and I wish you all the best. Have a really good night.
you. Goodbye, guys.